All right, welcome to Bolted Slugs, the podcast that is totally not a Ponzi scheme. Welcome to the show. My name is Zeus. With me today, we have Ellie Leonard. Say hi to the people. Tell them how you are.
Hi, people. I'm great. I have got my Starbucks, and I just got back from the gym because that's my version of anxiety medicine, and we're ready to go.
You know, for those of you who are awake before noon, I am doing you a huge favor because this is even still too early for me.
Well, I am grateful, Zeus.
Yeah. How do you hit the gym? How do you get excited
Physically?
for that?
How do I do it?
Because people do that. They love the gym.
Okay, I am not a gym rat, and I moved to New Jersey, and people are beyond gym rat here. They're like the juicy, like Italian, like they get dressed and they do their hair for the gym. I'm not that. I am sort of there to be not seen. I'm there because I have 4 kids, and I mean, it's to be in shape, sort of, but also it's that there is so much stress in raising 4 kids that on a day that I don't get some sort of physical activity, I'm so wound up and so like angry, and I'm so apologetic at bedtime because I'm just like yelling all day that
right.
this is based, like I said, it's like medication. It's the thing where I don't do a lot, I don't lift weights, I go and I just run in a straight line for a half an hour, and that kind of settles me for the day. And I don't do it every day, but I try to do it.
You know, creative people often have a similar story. I've got X amount of kids, or I've got a 9 to 5 that I'm trying to balance. Plus, then this massive creative thing that's just sitting there. And it's like, it's a simple question and it's been answered 1,000 times, but I'm infinitely curious of how do you do it? Especially with, as the number of children increase, I would assume exponentially those things.
Let's hope that stops.
That's not my ball game. That's entirely up to you. You have a choice.
Right. Yes, I am a smarty. For me, okay, so not the child side, but the creative side, it's kind of like, I mean, in the best way possible, it's kind of like having cancer. Like it's a thing that is there, that's not going to go away unless you do something about it. Mm-hmm. So you can't, like, if you have a book in your head, or you have a plot line, or you have just like one of these motivational goals that doesn't let you sleep, you can't just be like, well, some kids, I got to ignore that. Like, it's not going to go away. So you got to let it out in some level. So like, it's like that creative lion, right? It's just waiting to attack. And so for me, it took a while, right? There was sort of stuff bubbling in the back of my brain, but it took me thinking about it and then pausing and raising kids and all that to finally be like, I have to do this because it's not going away. Mm-hmm. And so it meant working after they were in bed at night. It meant probably 5 hours of sleep a night for a few months, but it was so satisfying to get it out. And then I was like, now I can rest. But then you start, hoofing the pavement, and then you don't rest anymore either. So there's always something.
Do you find that those constraints, that I got a half an hour here, or I've got an hour here, kids go to bed, and before I get tired, maybe I got an hour and a half window, do you find that those constraints actually help you, or are you the type of person that would prefer, say, an unlimited amount of time? Because I find an unlimited amount of time, I will do nothing, and I need an arbitrary deadline of some kind to do anything.
I'm one of those weirdos that lives for deadlines. I like somebody to tell me that something is due at a certain time. I'm pretty good about strict bedtimes. My kids, we have a rule in our house: unless you're bleeding, you're in bed, and I'm not going to see you anymore until morning. And they know that, and they know I love them, but they know that's the rule. And so for me, I need those constraints. I need that like 3-hour window. I can't write anything during daylight. I've begun to realize this about myself. I cannot sit down on an afternoon and be like, let's go through an outline. I can't do it. I need it to be dark and like I'm in a cave and I'm in my little zone. I'm hoping that changes when my last kiddo goes to school, because I'll have like this window of time. But yeah, I need that just like exact, like almost autistic routine of the same day over and over and over again in order to get what I need to do done, and also know exactly what I'm trying to get done that night. I'd be like, this is the amount of whatever I need to finish this outline. I need to do this, not even a word count, but like I need to finish listening to this interview or write this much or whatever, whatever.
Right. So you would then be one of the few people in the country who would vote for continuing daylight savings because you need it to be dark in order for anything to happen. So
No, if I go that far, I hate daylight savings time. But yeah. I just need my kids to go to bed. That's really it.
I don't know one how science works. That's why I'm a writer. But it's always struck me as odd, and I know it probably has something to do with like the distance from the sun. We're in the winter, all of that. But how do you fall back an hour, but the sun goes down like 4 hours? Like that, the
It's because
math
it's a
doesn't
tilt.
math.
It's a tilt. So the Earth is also tilting. The fallback and the spring forward, that was based on, I believe, agriculture at one time and the length of a day because there wasn't like electricity and people needed time away from the heat or they needed more time in the sun for crops. So that was all like man-made, but the actual like shortening of the day has to do with the rotation of the earth and the tilt on the axis away and towards the sun. So like when we're tilted away and we have 2 hour long days and Alaska's dark all day, like Australia is in the summertime and they're having their like nice 14-hour days.
Well,
So and then
they have death spiders though, so there's a
oh
trade-off.
no, I'm not going there. I'm just saying like they're having a nice summer break right now.
Yeah. Okay. So Bolton Slugs, the place where you get an answer to the daylight savings question.
Right. See, I'm super scientific.
Was
No,
not on the bingo card. So I took a look at your the old IMDb, the IMDb,
the MDib.
Because I do not want it to get out that I don't do the most minimal of research for my guests.
The researchiest research, yes.
But I noticed that you offer transcription services. So my
Yes.
question to you: how do you enjoy working for dictators?
Oh, yes. So I don't because I run my own life. I used to work for dictators. So there was a time when I was poor and like sad and I had to say yes to everything and work for everybody else. And I would literally transcribe like DUIs on the side of the road with traffic going by, and it was horrible and I couldn't hear anything and I was paid like 2 cents an hour. Eventually, the person I worked for closed up the business and he was like, if you want it, it's yours. And I was like, sure. And then I just started emailing people. I started like hacking into Muckraker and figuring out people's emails domains and just like contacting every journalist, every filmmaker, every director, anything I could find. And I emailed 4,000 people in 3 months, like over and over and over, like one at a time, no spam. Like I literally did it one at a time.
I don't know that I've sent 4,000 emails in my life. Wow.
Yeah, I know. And it started very small and I was terrified, but I probably got like 10 positive responses out of 4,000 emails. But it sort of built from there to where now I don't contact everybody. Everybody's word of mouth. And like this week, so I've worked, probably the longest I worked for was the New York Times. And I started way back when on this like Syrian refugee project, which then those journalists went on to write the Weinstein story. So that like, they kind of took me with them and then they wrote the book and they kind of took me with them there. And so that's been a really great journey. And so, but like tomorrow, I'm going to something called the Deal Book Conference, which I've never been to. I've typed it up every year. And this year they're like, hey, you're here. You're close to New York City. Do you want to come? And this is like dignitaries and world leaders and like CEOs like Bob Iger and like Elon Musk and like
we can't we don't talk about Bob on this show. No,
you know what? I'm not going to share my opinions. I'm guaranteeing that my opinions are the same opinions as your opinions, but
he's there. It's a big I get it. It's big wigs in the industry for sure.
So the way I see it is, if someone's going to be an asshole, you want to be in the room to see him do it, right? So
press record for the rest of us.
Yes, right. So I'm going to that tomorrow and it's kind of terrifying, and I've had to buy clothes that have to go to the dry cleaners, and this is all very grown-up-y for me, but just to see kind of how far I've come in this process that I'm being invited to these things, and this was all like my crummy little home business in Montana, and now I'm getting to do this. I'm getting to work with like Liz Garbus. I've worked with her several times. I've worked with some really amazing projects, and my whole life is I'm an NDA signing fly on the wall. I know everybody's secrets. I can say nothing. I'm low level CIA. That's how I see it.
Wow. Now, how did it feel working with the spunky little startup New York Times? That independent publisher.
I know. I mean, they're just falling apart, really.
That's right. So that's interesting because the people that I talk to, and I don't mean to besmirch. I mean, if anything's going to get besmirched, it's going to be me. I'm the
Right.
besmircher. Um,
That's your title.
but those types of people, right? Not commonly the type of people I think that you just kind of run into every day, and I don't necessarily always see those people in the same space as the guy who's like, I have a dream for a story. I want to make it into a book, a TV show, or a film. I see
Right.
those types of people who are like, how do I get 1,000 of those people into a group and then make money off of them
Mm-hmm.
and then complain that they don't want to do it for nothing?
A little corporate. A little
So
corporate.
how do you kind of reconcile the creative side of things, but then being in a world where the people who, quite frankly, make money and capitalize, thus
Mm-hmm.
capitalism, off of that, where do you see yourself in that mix?
So fortunately for me, most of the people I work with are like decent human beings in their home life and kind of maintain contact with me. I've had a lot of like personal relationships outside of work, which has been wonderful, which has pretty much gotten me to where I am. I actually called a woman the other day who works for NPR and I said, I don't know what to wear to something like this. I wear band t-shirts and jeans and I know that's not going to fly. And she's like, okay, you need the black blazer, you need the white shirt, you need the black pants. And she was like walking me through. And I think it's, and I have one guy for the LA Times who just he calls me every Christmas, every single Christmas, and gets on the phone and we just kind of like sum up the year and how's it going. And so everybody is a human being outside of their day job. And I probably wouldn't be where I am writing wise either if I didn't know some people. I feel like that's a big thing in this industry is you know someone and it's not fair if you do or if you don't. But like there's one person who I know and I won't name him, but he was like immediately when he heard I got a literary agent, he was like, when this publishes, may I be the first person to interview you? Can I get in line? I was like, absolutely. And this is a guy who his whole job is to travel internationally for sporting events. And he and his wife send me weird little trinkets from all over the world because he remembers that I'm a human being working for him. I'm not just like a corporation or like
Mm-hmm.
a non-existent person, which you can be. I mean, as a transcriber, people can forget that you're human, really honestly. um and he never forgot me and his wife never forgot me, and so these people are all like real people and they've all really helped me along the way, even if it's just encouragement or like advice. When I'm struggling and I'm like, everything's just rejections flying at me all the time, they're like, okay, take a deep breath, we got rejections too, this is how long it took us to get here. And so I think that's really helped me to have those connections. And I hope if I go into writing as a full-time position at some point, that I'll maintain those connections with all those people.
That's kind of almost we and I say we as if I'm like the spokesman for
Hey,
anyone, but you know, younger writers, less established people on the come up, those are the people that I feel like I'm talking to the
mm-hmm,
most.
mm-hmm.
And though we are kind of I'm a writer, I know words. We're
It's all
kind of
right.
told that that's the dream, right? You
Mm-hmm.
get the people that are in a position that know a guy who knows a guy who robs a guy. Thanks, Snoop Dogg. And and then you're kind of set. Do you think that is as accurate, kind of, as that claim is bandied about, or is there more to it than I finally got to the level where we're all wearing black blazers, you know?
Right.
Because really, yeah. Other than watching what Up in the Air, how do you know what to wear to a
Yeah, no,
conference?
no idea. No idea.
Can you buy
Um,
that stuff at Walmart? I don't know.
I have no idea. I was like at the mall going, I thought Saks Fifth Avenue was just like a department store, and I started walking towards it. I was like, whoops, nope, I'm turning around. I cannot afford this store.
Yeah, I don't. Is it one of those situations where you feel like I don't belong here, or
Oh, absolutely.
yeah?
Completely. Yeah. What is it? Imposter syndrome, like high level imposter syndrome. Because like like I got this little like tagline for this conference, and it said for like world leaders and financial CEOs and like venture capitalists, and I was like, where the hell do I fit in? Like, what, I'm supposed to go to a cocktail hour with these people, and I was like, I mean, maybe I'll stay for that, but I don't know what the heck I would talk about with these people. I have nothing in common with them. Um, Other than if they have like kids or if they wrote a
Mhm.
book, but I don't think these are a lot of fiction writers. I think these are a lot of people who are like journalistic writers and don't have that, they're not writing like, I don't know, whatever people write, like teen dramas or whatever. Like they're writing about like the Middle East and financial like college situation. They're not, we're not on the same level, but also that a lot of that is in my own head, right? We could totally be on the same level. I could talk to another person on a human level, but it's really intimidating. There's so much imposter syndrome that's associated with going to some like high level event.
Do you feel like, as I sit here and I make fun of like Bob Iger and Elon Musk and stuff because they don't, because you were just talking about that, how you might not always have been viewed as a real person. And here,
Mhm.
conversely, I'm literally basically saying that these are just, I don't know, three ducks in a suit for all I know.
Right, right.
Is there any indication when you're talking to these people, when you're around them, when you're in their space, that they are on for the performative aspects of it,
Mhm.
or are they desperately trying to be seen as that human who also runs multi-billion-dollar conglomerates that have
Oh
hundreds,
no.
if not thousands? You're not seeing that?
I think after a certain financial level in your life, you cannot be human anymore. You know what I mean? I call it the Oprah complex, and she's probably a great person, but it's like after you make $1 billion, you can't be human anymore. You forget how to stand in line, you forget how to get a speeding ticket, you forget how to buy your own groceries, you forget that you can like change your sheets once a week and not every day. Like people forget how to be human when they are that wealthy. They just can't fathom normal life anymore, and they think they can. They'll walk around in their like flip-flops, but they cannot be a human being anymore because there's no reason to live on that kind of money. Like if I talk to Elon Musk and he's got something like $250 billion, I'd be like, why not just keep 1 billion and be set, and your kids be set for the rest of your life, and like pay off college for the entire United States, or pay off poverty, or pay off like people's welfare checks for the entire United States. Like you could do all those things. Like there's no purpose to being that wealthy of a person. And I think you what I see it, like those old towns where they had like the false fronts, like the
Yeah.
big beautiful front, and then behind them it's
Mhm.
just a little crappy building. That's how I see it when I see these big CEOs. Like they're sort of like a false front, but they're this little kind of crappy person behind, because all they are is an advertisement for their company at some point. Like they're a puppet for the rest of the company behind them, or the powers that be, the board of directors, whatever, and they stop being a human being. They just, they're a marionette of sorts, I guess.
So, couple questions then. What is that dollar amount number? And how quickly can we get there? And and then two, because everybody in the space, kind of the circles that we generally walk in,
Mhm.
the people of the creative ilk, um, we we wonder, we get that question all the times, like, what is success? And it always boils down to, what is the price of a can of Coke to you? That
Right.
argument is varied. But when you are dealing with, by most measurable metrics,
Mhm.
people who have not only gotten fame, fortune, and success, but like you said, they stop to a degree, if not completely, uh, being human. What reasonable expectations do creative people have, or should they have, to kind of exist in a world where you have to navigate, hey, you might be famous, you might be successful, you can go into a Barnes and Noble and grab that hardback straight off the new release rack, but also pump your brakes a little bit because shit gets
Right.
weird after a certain level. You
Right.
know what I
Right. Right. Right.
mean?
Yeah. And I think the top tier like ceiling that we think about as writers is probably someone like Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, like people who've made $1 billion off books. Very rare. Most successful authors are still fairly middle class, I would say. For me, like if I think of financial success, because I think about this a lot, I would not make a very good rich person. I'm very uncomfortable around people who are just wealthy for the sake of being wealthy. If they are wealthy for like a really great thing that they did and they're really charitable with their money, then cool, we can hang out. But like I'm not gonna go to the Hamptons and like hang out on the beach. That's really uncomfortable for me.
I have
But
stayed
what
at a
I
Hampton Inn though,
oh
so
well
that's
yeah,
fine.
yes, right. Yes. Connected to a gas station. So for me, what I think about financial success for me would be like my kids can go to college
Hmm.
and start their lives. Like they could buy a house and go to college. If I could pay for that for them, if my house was paid off and I had a working car, right, my bills were paid, and then maybe go on a cool vacation once a year. And then everything after that, save a little bit, but you really don't need a lot, right? Those are kind of the basics. Your kids are taken care of, your bills are taken care of. Go to Disneyland once a year, right? And then from there, you have to pay it forward. And I think about that a lot because I think the book that I wrote is about a very small town that's near and dear to me, and it's very kind of impoverished. And I grew up in a very economically depressed town that was actually saved by a book. Someone wrote a book about it and it bounced back. And so I think about that a lot. Like if I'm writing about them, if I'm bearing their soul in front of the entire world, basically, they're naked now. I need to give something back to them, help them out. So I think about like if I would be able to do that or not.
I relate to that because I live in the Midwest. We've talked about this kind of offline
Mm-hmm.
and stuff before. I live and have grown up in towns of less than 1,000 people.
Right.
I think I saw a video on YouTube yesterday that there are 3 times as many cows
Oh,
in my county as
oh
there
yeah.
are people.
Oh
and
yeah.
and I know people who live in bigger cities, they're like, I don't know the last time I saw a
Yeah.
cow.
I moved here from Lolo, Montana, where we had a buffalo herd a block from our house, and easily 3 times as many animals as people in our state. I mean, there's only 1 million people in the entire state of Montana, and it's wilderness. It's one of the few states that probably looks like the original state before people got there, kind of a thing. So yeah, I can
Right.
relate to that.
In that regard, because I think that there is a unique experience, and I don't mean to crap on people who live in cities,
Hmm.
but here I go.
Okay, but do it.
The idea that you would give back. Do you
Mhm.
think I do? Do you think that is unique to people who come up in areas that maybe don't have the major metro? They're not well known. You don't have to look at a map and know where it is. Like if you said to a random person on the street, Lolo, Montana, how long do you think they would take, given a map, to find Montana?
I
You
would
know what I
hope they
mean?
could find it. I mean, I'm not that it's on a map, but like I would hope they'd be able to figure it out where it is. Um, yeah.
The idea that people have creative dreams, um, coming out of a small town. Do you think that it is unique to those people? And I say those people because I'm one of them.
Mm.
That we have that kind of backward view. Do you think that that is something that specifically exists kind of in the smaller market, or is it just artists are generally people that want to give back because we kind of know that even though it's consumed in every way, shape, or form, the moment you get home from your 9 to 5, you're turning on a TV show. That's an art. Somebody made that. Uh, is that a kind of? I guess I'm asking, is that kind of a nature versus nurture sort of thing? Is that the artist inclination to give back to where they came from, or is that just because of where the artist is from that they would maybe think about doing
So
something
yeah,
like
I
that?
would take that. I would take that step back and say that so many people who are creatives and who are like bursting at the seams come from very small places that don't give them a lot of creative opportunities, and that is why they are bursting at the seams. That's not everybody. Obviously now I live right outside New York City, and I would say Brooklyn is an incredibly artistic and creative place. There's a lot of music, there's a lot of writing, but I think you get some really, really great writers from small towns because they want more, right? And especially if they grew up there and they never left there, they financially they couldn't go to college or whatever. They want something else and they're like
Right.
desperate. It's like bursting, right? And so, but at the same token, there is this idea when you live in a small place, it's much more of a family, for better or for worse, right? You know everybody, you know the flaws, you know, like I lived in a town that tried for like all 6 years we were there to buy a park for kids to play in, and they couldn't raise the money to build a park. Like the town that I wrote about, they need a pool. Like they just need a swimming pool for kids to swim in the wintertime inside when it's negative 30 degrees. They need a place for kids to go play. And you know these things about your town when you live somewhere small. You may not know the struggles, which there are struggles, but you may not know like the economic depravity in your neighborhood if you live in a city. You may not know it individually what needs changing.
I think that is a good point because and anecdotally you can have anything be true, but I would argue that a lot of the people who seek out a place like LA or a place like New York that are these big markets that we're told to chase and go to because that's where the business, the business of it is.
Right.
um it it doesn't always strike me as equal that the people from those cities are, as what's the word, philanthropic. uh
Mhm.
I literally just had Tony Stark pop into my head, and I'm like, he's the most
Yeah,
philanthropic
he is.
dude
He really is.
ever.
Yeah, he is.
Terrible example, but he said it, so that makes it true.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because all of these people that have the money and the resources and the access and stuff, they tend to not feel as compelled, I would argue,
Right.
to
Well,
give back to a community that they came from because, well, that community was already established, so I'm just going to keep
right.
mine.
Right, right. Yeah, you're not as bonded to the people around you. And I think you'll hear from a lot of like higher up creative people in places like LA that when they go out looking for talent, they don't want the LA kids. They want the kids from somewhere else because they're kids that have a little bit more like sustenance and integrity and have seen other parts of the world, or they may be a little bit more innocent or more unique. And LA kids tend to be kind of like the LA kid, and they
Mm.
are, they're a little bit fast on their feet, and they already know what's up, and they already know what's expected, and I think a lot of times people kind of veer away from that a little bit. But I think that's true. Like if you lived in LA, if you grew up, even if you grew up in a nice neighborhood in LA, like, yeah, no, you're not going to give any money back to your community. You don't care. Or you're not going to go give money. You're not going to like give money to Compton because you grew up in LA and you made $1 million. Like, you're not going to be like, well, hold on here. Let me write you a check. No. I think people think less about that in those situations because they're like, I don't know those people and they're all the way across town and they
So
probably
what?
have someone else.
Yeah. So what reason would I have? And as we, man, no, this is
We could
specifically
talk all
why
day.
I love this show, because it's like these are the things I think we think about, but we don't necessarily have the opportunity to say out loud
Mhm.
in an understanding space, because especially places like Twitter, Instagram, stuff like that, you're going to get so many disparate arguments thrown at you that nothing feels
Mhm.
cohesive. And I'm not
Right.
saying that there isn't someone who lived in a less affluent sort of area that didn't
Right.
make it big and give back. Cite your sources, list them in the
Right.
comments, whatever.
Right.
They
Right.
exist. I'm sure they do. But generally speaking, I feel like that notion is true.
Right.
So we've dunked on rich people, we've dunked on billionaires, we've dunked on people from cities. So I'm not entirely sure how this particular pick a fight segment is going to go. But
To be continued.
in regards to the industry at large,
Mhm.
what do you see, or what would you say to someone on that come up that you want to get rid of in the industry? Pick a fight with something, someone in the industry, especially in regards to writing and creation, that
Okay.
you're like, you know what? I would like to meet you out by the monkey bars and punch you in the
Right.
nose.
Okay, if you're a famous actor and you've made it big and you grew up on SNL or you did anything and you're amazing and you're at the top and you're hosting things, you don't need to become a writer. Not everybody's entitled to become a writer. Like, you don't need to write a children's book. Let other people write children's books. People who have already made it and who are already there and who already have their resources. It's kind of like AI. Like, you're just stepping on toes of people who write for a living and write quality children's books. And I will, okay, I'm sorry, BJ Novak, he wrote the children's book with no pictures. And I was like, come on, man, that's just a cop out. Like, some poor hack is out there trying to write a really like beautiful children's book, beautiful illustrations. And here good old BJ Novak with his pictureless children's book, and which is a good guy,
Well,
yeah.
it feels like a grift because not specifically just BJ Novak, but there are people who have made an unnecessary amount of money literally printing empty books on Amazon.
Right.
It's a grift. It just feels like a grift. Now, BJ could probably sit here and tell me all the creative reasons about.
And he's a great guy, and and he, he went around, he read it at like libraries and children's schools and that.
How do you read a blank book? What are you talking about? Read a blank book? What?
Because he's an actor. He acted what he was saying. But some mom sitting at home is not going to be like, hold on, kids, let me get up on stage and perform this book for you. I'm tired. Like, I just feel like it's an entitlement for famous people to be like, now I'm going to write a children's book, or now I'm going to write a memoir, or now I'm going to write this. And it's just like, you know what? I'm happy for you, and that you're already there, and that you don't even have to make a call. And
but are you though? But are you though?
I'm not at all. Like, let people write great books, and then maybe like collaborate with authors. Find people who are up and coming and collaborate with them, and start to find these like really, these diamonds in the rough that are out there, and encourage somebody else to become a great writer, rather than just being like, well, I'm already famous and now I'm going to write a picture book. Like, that's the thing that drives me nuts. People who write like Denny's menu books, like there's just captions and pictures, and they're like, there's my biography. And it's like, no, you don't even have any paragraphs. There are no chapters.
We are still at the time of recording in the month of November, and
Yes.
this is ostensibly NaNoWriMo, which is
Yes.
is a contest against oneself to create a full-fledged 50,000 word novel. And I agree with you that there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people globally struggling to put 50,000 words together for what potentially could be, the thing that breaks them in or down, which direction is yet to be revealed. But then you see these famous people who already have theirs, who are like, if I tried to do a pictureless children's book, do you think any publisher on this planet, these people would, if it wasn't a famous actor's name attached to that, you'd get laughed out of the building. You would get ghosted on the email.
Yeah, they would talk to each other, and then you'd be out. Yeah.
So in that regard, like, where do you see things going in even the interim, 12 to 18 months? Where do you see the industry going in terms of like the creative? Are we all just going to have to suffer the MBA finance bros for the next 10 years? Or is something finally going to happen where we kind of start getting back to the art of it?
I think we're at a little bit of a breaking point, because we're also in a fight against AI and people creating books out of AI, which are like soulless and a waste, and they're like checking out at McDonald's on one of those ATMs. Like, they're really a waste of time. So I think that's the main fight right now. And the nice thing about that fight is it involves everybody, whether you're famous or you're not famous, or, you're brand new, you suck, you're great, whatever. It involves everybody. Everybody is in this really big fight against AI, and where it stands and where it's appropriate. And it's not appropriate at all in writing books. It's just not. Or writing music. I mean, there's no vein for it there. You're taking people's livelihoods away. And so I think that's the main thing that we're dealing with right now. Beyond that, I'm not really sure, because I've heard this is a really tough time in the industry, right? Because we've gone from like back in the day when people had to submit like packages in the mail, and they would submit like 14 of them, right? We hear, oh, they got rejected 14 times. Yeah, well, we do everything digitally now. I've been rejected 153 times. That's how many times I got rejected before I found a literary agent, was 153. So it's
some guy listening is like, that's nothing.
No, I know.
But I'm like, 153. Again, I don't know that I've sent 153 emails in my life.
Right. I mean, I always tell people, this is the closest thing I've ever had to clinical depression in my entire life, is submitting my writing. Like, I've never dealt with as much like desperation in my life. So yeah, I think we're just sort of at a curve right now. I'm not really sure where it's going, But I think, like I said, I think AI is the main fight right now that everybody's sort of stopped and waiting to figure out what's going to happen.
Absolutely. No, that's perfect note to end on there, because I agree wholeheartedly. In the time that we have left, briefly, where can people find you? Where can they find your stuff? Where can they put the complaints in DMs? Where can they find you on socials
Okay.
and get your transcription services?
Okay, so if you wanted like work done, I have a website called redpenciltranscripts.com, and that's got kind of the rundown of what I do as far as work. I'm building a website. It's out there. I find it a little bit basic right now, but it's just ellieleonard.com. And then everywhere as far as social media, the main things I'm active on are Instagram and Twitter, and it's under Red Pencil Script for everything. That's my handle everywhere. So you can kind of find me and complain to me. And I believe my DMs are open. So there you go.
Fantastic. Those will all be included in the description, in the show notes. We'll make sure that those are open and available. And I apologize in advance.
Yeah, well, there you go. You know what? Hate mail is the first like line to success. There you go.
Well, you've got your coffee and you got your gym out of the day, so the adrenaline's pumping. You can take it. You can handle it. Yes. Ellie Leonard, thank you very much for stopping by the quickest half an hour in the business. I appreciate your time and just the absolute bridges we have burned. I love it. Good luck at your conference with all those
oh man,
inhuman lizard people.
Yeah, I'll be like tweeting incessantly. I'll be like, oh, get me out of here.
We'll have you back on the show in the future because we're going to need a follow-up.
Sweet. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Bolded Slugs, the podcast, would like to thank our partners at filmsnobbery.com for hosting our show. Today's music is Sublime by Ken Bashari from the Free Music Archive, licensed under Creative Commons. Bolded Slugs, the podcast, is a Dapper Duck media production.